Hi, my name is Frank Schaeffer. In the 1970s and 80s, along with my father Francis Schaeffer and Dr. C. Everett Koop, who became Ronald Reagan Surgeon General, I toured the country as an evangelical right-wing activist. We were talking about so-called pro-life values. Our real agenda was anti-woman misogyny and telling people that family values equaled women having no choice. We worked with people who didn't believe that women should have access to contraceptives. And I left that world. I fled the evangelical world. For the last 35 years, I have been working as an activist, I guess, on the side of progressive values. But I grew up knowing the evangelicals. People like the Reverend Billy Graham would come to my house. In fact, I met Franklin Graham, who runs the Billy Graham organization now, for the first time when I was 9 years old. His sister Gigi was a friend of mine. Ruth Graham was a good friend of my mother's. My mom and dad stayed in the Ford White House. Mike Ford stayed in our house. Betty Ford was a friend of my mother's. I'm not dropping names here for no reason. I'm just letting you know we were really in tight with the right wing and the Republicans, and I have personal notes from both Reagan and both Bush presidents in their own handwriting, etc., etc., etc. Now, the fact of the matter is, today, Ukraine is at war, attacked by Vladimir Putin. But we mustn't let the evangelicals off the hook for two huge historical mistakes. One, they gave us, working with Vladimir Putin, evangelical leaders gave us Donald Trump as president, who was himself virtually an operative for Putin in the sense of justifying what he was doing, calling him a great guy, super intelligent, liked what he did, excused him, etc. But more than that, as we look at Ukraine being murdered by Vladimir Putin, let's remember that in 2015, the evangelical right-wing leader Franklin Graham visited Russia and had nothing but praise for Putin's Christian values, which he contrasted with pro-gay Western decadence, as he put it, and our liberal values and our liberal democracy. He said Putin should be commended for standing for traditional Christian values in contrast with, say, U.S. Democrats and other liberals. Now, the same is true of Ralph Reed, and the same is true of Tucker Carlson. When you look at the Notre Dame speech that Bill Barr gave, who was Trump's AG, Attorney General at the time, he talked about returning America to Christian values and standing against secular humanism. This was the same language that made so many evangelical leaders and so many Roman Catholic conservatives support Vladimir Putin. Now they're going to backpedal furiously and pretend that they did not give him legitimacy with evangelicals as a reason to support Donald Trump. In other words, what most Americans were horrified by, that Vladimir Putin in 2016 got into our electoral process and perverted it in favor of making Donald Trump president, because Putin feared Hillary Clinton, who had a clear-eyed vision of who he was. He pushed to make Donald Trump president, and he won. He made Donald Trump president. All through Trump's presidency, he played footsie with Putin, including blackmailing him and saying that if blackmailing not Putin, but blackmailing President Zelensky of the Ukraine, saying, if you want weapons from America, you've got to find dirt on Hunter Biden in his re-election attempt. Wherever you touch this, it's filthy from top to bottom. Evangelical Christians calling Putin a Christian and contrasting him favorably with American Christians, for instance, in more liberal denominations, who they call decadent because they're not bigots against gay people, they're not bigots against women. So when William Barr, in his famous speech that he gave at Notre Dame, called for Trump's re-election because he was standing against secular humanist values, it's the same language that Franklin Graham was using to endorse Putin. Vladimir Putin, Donald Trump, the white evangelical Americans are very much the same people when it comes to their idea of authoritarianism being something God-given to stand against secular decadence. We can't let them off the hook. Evangelicals in the U.S. these days are almost a fifth column of anti-democracy activists. Is that exaggerated? No, because look at every state house they control in the Republican Party, controlled by evangelicals in that party. What are they doing? They're erecting barriers against voting. They're erecting barriers against people of color voting. They're erecting barriers, fake barriers, based on their bogus claim that Trump won the election. trying to actually organize things so Republicans can win next time no matter who votes for whom. So Putin's anti-democracy efforts to crush Ukraine, Franklin Graham's attempt to blame people who are liberals for a secular humanist decadence when in fact he has endorsed the most decadent, vile human being on the planet as a good Christian, that being Vladimir Putin, second only to Donald Trump, also endorsed by Franklin Graham, who, by the way, after the January 6th insurrection, defended Trump and went after the 11 Republicans in Congress who voted to impeach him. Do not let evangelicals off the hook. They need to be reminded they have taken a terrible path, an anti-American path, an anti-democracy path, a pro-tyranny path. And their two heroes, Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump, really, really, really have put us in a horrible mess right now. But without the evangelical participation in this, we would not be in the place we were today. Thank you. My name is Frank Schaeffer.